What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. And it's a tough one tonight. The Dodgers lose Game 3 of the NLDS 1-0 to the Giants, breaking a 16-game home winning streak and putting their season just one loss away from being over with. There's a ton to talk about. Max Scherzer, absolutely dominant. Dodger offense, whatever the opposite of that is, completely pathetic performance from them against Alex Wood and some folks that really, on paper, you should feel pretty good about your matchups. Obviously, some big decisions made by Dave Roberts, notably the decision to put Austin Barnes into the lineup at probably the biggest moment of the game. Mookie Betts had a number of chances to succeed and to put runs on the board for the Dodgers. He came up empty. The Giants played great defense. The wind knocking down a ball that Gavin Lux hits at the end that definitely looks like it's headed out. So plenty to talk about here, folks. Obviously, I'm by myself right now, so I appreciate those joining us. Gregory, Joseph, Lucky, all of you on YouTube, folks joining us like Corey over on Facebook, Nathan as well. Thank you. There's going to be an interactive show as we try and process what we just watched and look forward to what the future looks like. Daniel might be joining us in a little bit. He was at the game and is headed home after that, so we'll see what that looks like. But let's go. Let's start with the optimistic headline here, which is Max Scherzer. 3 straight bad starts from him, 5 runs apiece in his 2 last regular season starts, and then a rough wild card game performance that the Dodgers salvaged. This is the first game he pitches in that the Dodgers lose, and yet that's a shame. 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. He does make the mistake to Longoria, who hits a ball through the wind to put the Giants up 1-0. But aside from that, Scherzer was absolutely everything that you could hope for. I asked Matt Moreno in our pregame show, do you think we see anybody but Scherzer, Treinen, and Jansen? His answer was no. My answer was no, because we saw it playing out exactly like this. Can you get 6 or 7 from Scherzer? Can you get 2 or 3 from Treinen and Jansen? The answer is yes. The Giants put 4 base runners on base the entire game. They struck out 14 times. More than half of the outs came via the strikeout. They had just 3 hits, the 1 walk, but it doesn't matter because their 1 hit was big enough. The Dodger offense, on the other hand, they mustered 2 hits against Alex Wood and 2 walks, 3 hits against Rogers, and then McGee and Doval completely shut them down. 2 2/3 perfect inning, and 6 strikeouts for the group as a whole. It's tough because to see Scherzer absolutely dialed in. He struggles in the first. He walks the leadoff man, Buster Posey, a 1-out single, but he recovers. He strikes out the side, Crawford and Bryant with 2 runners on. Needs 25 pitches to get through it, but from there on, it was pretty much nastiness from Scherzer. 2 more strikeouts in the second inning. He gets up to 5 Ks. A quick third inning, he gets to, after taking 25 pitches to get through the first inning, he needs just 25 to get through the next 2. In the fourth, he retires 10 straight before a 2-out Bryant single, gets his 8th strikeout to end that one. But the 5th inning is the big one. Longoria crushes an 0-2 fastball into left field for a home run, and that's the one that hurts. You're ahead 0-2, you're dealing, but nothing he can do. He retires the next 3. He retires a 1-2-3 inning in the 6th. He gets a 1-2-3 inning in the 7th, and then the Dodger, Treinen, and Jansen are both perfect. So the Bryant home run in the 5th inning was the last hit that the Giants had. It was the last base runner that the Giants had, and yet it doesn't matter because the Dodger offense completely falls asleep. Complete no-show from the Dodgers with the exception of basically Albert Pujols. They go 1-2-3 in the first 2 innings offensively. In the third, they get a leadoff single from Pujols. As I said, that was a funny moment if you were watching the broadcast. Kershaw hoping for a double and then realizing Albert's the one running. Scherzer sacrifices him to second. He moves to third on a wild pitch, but Mookie Betts pops up to end that inning. In the 4th inning, Corey Seager with a 1-out walk, Taylor with a 2-out walk, Pollock lines out to Brandon Crawford. That ball had an expected batting average of 500. They get the force out at second. Nothing doing. In the 5th inning, another leadoff single from Pujols. Billy McKinney comes into pinch run. Will Smith pops out. Scherzer can't get the bunt down. Rogers comes in to face Mookie with the runner at first. He lines it up the middle, but Crawford is right there. 101-mile-an-hour exit velocity. Again, 550 expected batting average, but it's an out. 6th inning, heart of the order due up. Justin Turner, 2-out single. Chris Taylor smokes a ball, 107 miles an hour off the bat, 920 expected batting average. It gets caught. Nothing doing for the Dodgers. They just couldn't string anything together. They kept hitting balls hard, but it was right at guys. Giants' defensive positioning was great all night. 7th inning, Rogers still in. Great play by the second baseman to get A.J. Pollock. Souza comes in as a pinch hitter. He singles. Will Smith singles. And then this is the moment. Austin Barnes pinch hitting. They bring him in to face Rogers. They switch to the lefty and McGee with Gavin Lux available, with Matt Beatty available, with Cody Bellinger available. Dave Roberts 6 with Barnes. He strikes out. And then Mookie comes up, smashes the ball up the middle. Great catch by Brandon Crawford, jumping and catching it basically at its high point. An 870 expected batting average on that one. I mean, 4 balls with an expected batting average over 500, most of which would have scored a run. The Dodgers get none of them to drop. And then once Camilo Duvall comes in, the Dodgers had absolutely no chance in the 8th or the 9th. Lux, again, looked like he got it. I haven't seen the expected velocity on Lux's ball. He signaled like he thought he got it. The center fielder ran like it looked like it was going to be out. But that's where the wind comes in, blows that ball back, and nothing doing for the Dodgers. So I'm looking in the chat. You tell me, where are you at after this one? Is the series over? Is Dave Roberts the GOAT in this one? Like, what do the Dodgers do? Where do they go from here? I'd love to hear from you. So throw that in the chat. Again, Dodgers lose 1-0. They're down 2-1 in the NLDS. They do have a home game tomorrow to even the series, and then could be going back to Game 5 in San Francisco, hopefully. There you go. THP points out 107 miles an hour and an 890 expected batting average on the ball that Gavin Lux hit, but doesn't matter. Logan says it's over. Lucky says it's not over. Derek Wang says Roberts isn't the guy to blame here. The players have to perform. And really, I think I agree with that. I mean, the Barnes decision is brutal, but look, the Dodgers, even if they make the right decision there, and even if they were to get one run, to say that the Dodger offense isn't to blame for the other 8 innings of scoreless baseball all the times. And again, and part of it's hard to blame the players because these guys are hitting the ball hard. They're just hitting them right at players. So it's a mix of bad luck. It's a mix of just unfortunate approaches. It's a mix of good pitching from the Giants. I mean, Alex Wood is not great, but the guys that came in after him, Rogers is nasty to deal with. McGee is really good. And obviously you saw Doval. I mean, if it's the first time you're seeing him, 101 and a slider that's perfect. So a pretty disappointing one there. Tayo makes a point. Hey, both teams played in the same stadium. The wind was the same for both. Longoria's ball somehow gets out. Lux's ball doesn't, and that's what matters in this one. It's not over, Derek says. Otherwise, why even play tomorrow? The Dodgers will be back. We'll see again. We're expecting at some point a decision to be made about who's starting tomorrow, whether it's Tony Gonsolin in a bullpen game or whether they do go and press the buttons and go to Walker Buehler on short rest, knowing that Julio Urias would be available in Game 5. Let's see. Lefty Lebowski, this team can win 2 games in a row. And that's the thing, right? The Dodgers came back from 3-1 in the NLCS last year. So 2-1 is nothing. Just need 2 games in a row. One of them's at home. You like your odds, obviously, knowing you need to beat Logan Webb in one of those, but if you can get past Webb, you like your odds against either Gossman in Game 5 if they go Webb in short, or Desclafani tomorrow. That would be a guy the Dodgers have hit really, really well. So inconsistent bat, says Tony D. There's some language there that we're not going to read on the show, but I appreciate the passion, that's for sure. Graybeard says Dodgers have the highest payroll in baseball, but the smallest heart. Luke, I love this team, man, but why does it always seem like we play with no energy? That's what's hard is you watch this game and you're just trying to make sense of what you're watching. It's clearly not that they don't care. You can see the reaction when Mookie's lineout gets caught. You can see the reaction when Gavin Lux doesn't make the last out. You can see how fired up they got. Chris Taylor played a great game defensively in center field. But man, it just felt like there's something off. There's something missing here. Sergio says this isn't the same team that came back from 3-1. I agree with you. On paper, it's better. Like, that's the hardest part. This team is better. They have Max Scherzer, who just did what he did, and yet nothing. Lola P sums it up perfectly. Pain, pain, pain. Well, let's talk about, the Barnes decision, I think, is the biggest moment of the game. It's the one that most people are going to be talking about. If you've watched this show before, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you know how I feel about Austin Barnes. I'm not a big Austin Barnes guy. I don't believe in him as a hitter. If you want to tell me he's great defensively, I'm fine with that. Defensively, no issues. You'll get no issues from me. But it's the offensive piece that hurts. So Rogers is in the game. He's a right-handed pitcher, but he has reverse splits, meaning right-handed hitters perform better against him than left-handed hitters. Rogers is in. You can tell he's struggling. He's just put 2 guys on. They bring Barnes in. Now, I think the expectation from everybody that's watching this is that Rogers is not going to get to see another batter. Again, this is the 7th inning. There's a great play at second base to get Pollock. Otherwise, he would have been on. Then Souza singles, Will Smith singles. So could have been 3 straight singles. Instead, it's just 1. There's runners at first and second with 1 out. You know they're going to be a pitching change. Rogers, at this point, had his season high for pitches. He had come in way back in the 5th, pitched all the way through the 6th, comes back out for the 7th. Again, gets the 1 out, gives up 2 singles. So you know there's a pitcher that's coming in. McGee, the only guy warming up. So you know you're going to get a lefty. Now, that's the thing, the beauty of if Rogers has reverse splits and you want to play the splits, then righty, lefty, you want a lefty in for both, or you want a righty in for both of those guys. So that's the decision with Barnes. But here's the thing that frustrates me. Everybody's saying, oh, well, Barnes is the only righty available. Beatty, Bellinger, Lux, the three other options, all lefties. You can't bring in a lefty to face a lefty. And my question is, why not? Like, what if the righty that you have isn't any good? What if the righty that you have doesn't have the capacity to hit righties or lefties? And what if the lefties that you have aren't terrible against left-handed pitching? Okay? Now, I went and looked. This season, Austin Barnes is 14 for 66 against left-handed pitchers. That's an average of something like 220. He actually hit better against right-handed pitchers than he did against left-handed pitchers. 14 for 66 is not good. Not good at all, right? So then you say, well, what are the options? The only other options they have are Bellinger, who's been terrible. I agree with you. The Lux and Beatty. Okay, well, look it up. Matt Beatty this season, 7 for 20, small sample size, 7 for 20 against lefties. That's a 350 batting average, had a home run. Gavin Lux, this season, 6 for 16 against, Gavin Lux dating back to September 1st. So this stretch when he has been on fire since September 1st, when he's been called back up, 6 for 16 against lefties with a home run. So you have two guys that these are all small sample sizes, right? And Austin Barnes, maybe a tick better for his career against left-handed pitchers than he was this year. But no matter what situation, no matter what split you want to look up for Austin Barnes, it's not going to be better than like a 230 batting average. And you're putting him in against the best pitcher that the other team has, the second best pitcher, their setup guy, Jake McGee. And it's just unacceptable. He strikes out in the most predictable outcome possible. Again, Lux, 6 for 16 since September 1st against lefties with a home run. Matt Beatty on the season, 7 for 20 with a home run. Both of those guys are sitting on the bench. Now, Lux comes up in the ninth. Matt Beatty never gets an at-bat. Matt Beatty is so much better offensively than Barnes, and you're not bringing Barnes in for a defensive switch. Bellinger comes in for a defensive switch, doesn't see the field. That's the part for me that struggles. And again, if you're watching this, if you're listening, let me be clear. If you missed me say this earlier. The Dodgers did not lose because of this one decision. They had 4 or 5 other chances with runners in scoring position and did nothing with any of them, okay? They were 0 for 4 with runner in scoring position. Mookie was 0 for 2. Barnes 0 for 1. Pollock 0 for 1. They left 7 guys on base. It did not come down to one simple at-bat. Although, when you lose by 1 run, every single small decision comes back and has to be evaluated. And this one for me, I get it. The splits. Austin Barnes isn't good. Like when Max Scherzer is at the plate, I'm not thinking, oh, well, Scherzer's a righty, and so they have a lefty, so I feel better about this. I'm thinking Max Scherzer can't get a hit, so it doesn't matter who's on the mound, right? The same thing goes with Austin Barnes. He's a bad hitter against righties or lefties. And yes, you might think lefty doesn't sound good. Look at the numbers. Lux, 6 of 16 since September 1st. Matt Beatty, 7 for 20 on the season. Both those guys have home runs as well. So that's all I'm saying. I would just trust those guys. I would trust the better hitter rather than taking a worse hitter and trying to play the splits. That's where I'm at. So, folks in the chat, you let me know, right? Like, let me know if anything I'm saying didn't line up here, but I don't know. That's the part that makes no sense. That's the part that I struggle with. So, there you go. DCS saying, fair weather fans, have some faith. Look, I haven't been reading every message in the chat. I don't think this is over. I think if you're telling me, can the Dodgers win 2 games against the Giants, the answer is absolutely yes. They didn't play well enough to do it today. But there's 2 more. There's 2 more games in front of you. And if you win both of those, then this game doesn't matter. This decision from Dave Roberts doesn't matter. For me, that's the hard part, is what happens from here out. Okay, let's get to some questions because we've got some good ones. Adrian wants to know about the decision to pinch run for Albert Pujols so early in the game. He gets his second hit, I believe, in the 5th inning. Bottom of the 5th. He gets a leadoff single and Billy McKinney pinch runs. To me, that decision made perfect sense just because you have to imagine Pujols wasn't going to see another left-handed pitcher at any point in this game. And so if he's not going to see a lefty, he's terrible against righties. And so you might as well just burn McKinney, who you're not going to trust to hit anyways. Let him run. Obviously, in a 1-run game with a leadoff single. I mean, it happened when Pujols first reached. I honestly thought that they might pinch run for Pujols the first time. Just because where they had him in the order, 7th, the odds that he was going to get all the way back around to see Alex Wood a second time seemed low. Of course, I think he was one of the last batters that Alex Wood faced. So it was right about there. But you almost saw that, right? Because he was standing on second with Mookie Betts up and 2 outs, and you're like, he's probably not scoring on a single. Like, unless that single is a blooper or like hit to the gap, there was no chance. Now, of course, he advances to wild pitch. Wouldn't have mattered. But no surprise to me. I think it was the right decision to pinch run. I was surprised they didn't put Bellinger there, a better speed guy and a better defensive player. But clearly they wanted to maybe save Bellinger for a pinch hitting opportunity, which never ended up happening. He just came in as a defensive sub and never saw the field. So I think that made sense there. Patrick wants to know, how likely will it be for Buehler to start tomorrow night? It's a great question. And I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing we're going to find out. Maybe there's a post-game press conference going in right now, and we'll find out. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I was thinking beforehand, which situation would actually cause me to be more eager to put Buehler? Would it be a win and knowing you could close it out tomorrow, or would it be a loss knowing your back was against the wall? Doesn't matter now because your back's against the wall. To me, I would definitely pitch Buehler on short rest. I know he's never done it, but this is your guy. This is your big game pitcher next to Max Scherzer. This is a guy who's performed in every situation you've asked him to perform in. He's pitched well of late. I know it might be uncomfortable, but Buehler doesn't strike me as a guy that would be thrown off by that decision. And for me, you need to win too. And if you trot Tony Gonsolin and a bullpen game out there tomorrow and lose and Gonsolin gets roughed up, I just think it's a bad look. I think you regret that decision. Right? It's what decision can I live with even if it goes wrong? I think I would trust Buehler. Say, hey, can we get 4 or 5 innings from Walker Buehler? All the bullpen is rested, right? Kelly, Knebel, Vesia, none of those guys pitched tonight. Trinan and Jansen, easy innings for them. So you can get 5 or 6 innings from your bullpen. Can I get 3 or 4 from Walker Buehler first and then go from there, knowing that I've got Julio in game 5? If it was, hey, we need to do a bullpen game one of these times, then fine. We need to win both, so put Walker on normal rest for game 5. But knowing that I have Julio, who prior to tonight's performance from Scherzer might have been the pitcher you trusted the most, I would go Buehler on short rest, followed by Julio in game 5. That would be me, but we'll see. Luke Shady wants to know who's starting on the bump for the Giants. It's the same decision. I don't think either team had announced the starter going in. Logan Webb would be in the same spot as Buehler on short rest, but my guess is, knowing that even if they get to game 5, if they have a fully rested Logan Webb at home, that they might go that route. But Desclafani, the other guy, has gotten shelled by the Dodgers a couple times this season. So here we go. All right, Daniel Starkin is here on YouTube. So let me see if we can get him into this, and we'll go from there. But keep throwing some questions in the chat. We'll get to those here in just a second. We'll get Daniel's thoughts. Again, Daniel was at the game, so curious to hear his perspective as somebody who was in the stadium. But we're loading stuff up here. Yeah, Derek says we need Giants fans here. I don't think we need Giants fans here. I'm going to be honest, Derek. I appreciate the support from you. I'm not sure any of us really wants Giants fans in the chat. So, yeah, we'll see. Okay. Give me a sec. The other thing we'll talk about here in just a moment is player of the game performance. So let us know who you've got as a player of the game, and we'll see. Okay. Daniel joining us now from a new performance, new situation. Here we go. Got to get this thing loaded up. All right, Daniel, you were at the game. Here you go. Here you go. You were at the game. Man. We talked about Payne. We talked about the decision a little bit to Austin Barnes. We'll get your thoughts on that. But just as somebody who's in the stadium, give us your thoughts on what you saw, what the atmosphere was like, and go from there.
I mean, the atmosphere was great. The Dodger fans brought it. It was a full house, of course. I was honestly kind of surprised at how few Giants fans were there. Like, it was all Dodger fans. The wind was not fun, obviously, both in the game and outside of the game. Like, I'm cool with sitting there cold in the wind if we're winning and putting up runs, but when the wind is what's costing us runs, that's not fun. That loss, that was a tough one. I'm not sure what you've talked about yet, but Max Scherzer was obviously fantastic. Just the one mistake to Longoria. And I guess you got to give credit to Longoria, because on a night where the wind was as bad as it was, he still found a way to get it out. And that's all it took, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I brought up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, what was your in the first inning? I was worried. It looked like the Scherzer that has been rough for the last few games. Obviously, there were some swings and misses, but just couldn't seem to find the strike zone. His first pitch was wide to the right. His second pitch got pulled way inside left. He walks the leadoff guy, Buster Posey, the one-out single. Of course, he bounces back, ends up striking out the side, but has to throw 25 pitches. At that moment, what was your confidence level that we would end up in a spot where Scherzer ends up with 7 innings of one-run ball?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously, you just mapped it out. He didn't look great his first 2 innings. He's at like 40-something pitches. The wind is like literally blowing him over.
Yeah, that was quite a moment.
I can't remember ever pitching in anything close to that, but it can't be easy, that's for sure. So it didn't look good to start, but when you see that happening to Scherzer in the first, you also think like, all right, now Alex Woods got to do the same thing. So, I didn't think Scherzer would be getting through 7, striking out 10 or whatever the way he did. But I mean, he settled in from there and was, dominant
Yeah.
outside of just the one pitch to Longoria on an 0-2 pitch. You can't really ask for much more from Max there. He did everything he could. Trinan and Kenley after him were both great too. You just need to find a way to, scrape a couple runs across there. And it just didn't happen tonight.
Yeah, and the other story on the offensive side is kind of a combination of, and I guess maybe the question is, would you describe what happened to the offense more of bad luck or just a bad performance? I mean, we went through all of the opportunities that the Dodgers had to score, and balls that they hit that, to be fair, weren't like perfectly hit balls, but balls that most of the time land for singles. So in the fourth, they had Seager and Taylor on first and second. AJ Pollock comes up. He lines a ball up the middle, expected batting average of 500, but Crawford's in front of it. In the fifth inning, Pujols, the leadoff single. Scherzer can't get the bunt down. Mookie comes up. He lines a ball up the middle. Again, 550 expected batting average. Crawford, though, right there. Sixth inning, Justin Turner, 2-out single. Chris Taylor comes up. 107-mile-an-hour exit velocity. 920 expected batting average. Caught at the wall in center field. And then in the seventh inning, this is the Barnes moment. Barnes gets out. Mookie comes up in the same situation. Runners at first and second. 870 expected batting average from Mookie Betts. Great play by Brandon Crawford. So when you look at it as a whole, like, is this just bad luck? Like the Dodgers just couldn't get any breaks, couldn't get any bounces? Or was there something more at work in your opinion?
I guess it was kind of a mixture of both. Like, I don't think it was a great offensive performance by any means, but I definitely thought that, they did well enough that they should have at least scored 2 runs, which would have been enough to win this one. Like, you just listed all the potential hits and home runs they would have had if not for the win, some of them, and also, great defense with the Giants with the Crawford plays. There's not much to do that move that as hard as be. If Crawford doesn't make that play, the game's tied and you got the winning or go ahead run at third base. So I think the Dodgers had their chances. They did, they put the ball in play, like outside of the Barnes app bat, there wasn't like a huge strikeout. Like they're putting the ball in play at least. And they're hitting the ball hard for the most part. Like I think John Wiseman, I think that's his name. Yeah. He tweeted that like the Dodgers 5 hardest hit balls of the night, they went 0 for 5 in those. So that's just unlucky. And the Giants, they only hit 2 hard hit balls all night and we're 2 for 2. So sometimes that's just how it works out. It's really unfortunate. Like it's like when I was at the game, like so many times where you're just on your feet, excited, like thinking like, all right, this is the time we finally break through, just to get like stabbed right in the heart with like an incredible defensive player, like a long fly ball that the wind knocks down. It was unfortunate. I think I'd say tonight's offensive performance was better than game 1. Like I feel like in game 1 there was no rallies. They didn't really hit the ball hard much at all. Tonight they did that. They just couldn't get it across. Well, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just very unfortunate and like kind of just took the wind out of everything. Like every time, like you get a little bit of momentum, you're feeling good. You see a ball just smoked.
Yeah,
and then
it reminds me a little bit of the wild card game where, yes, you win that game, but you don't walk away like, oh man, feel great about the offense, feel great about where we were. This one is just, you feel equally as bad, but it's just worse because you lost, right? It's not because like you couldn't scrape it out. Like there were opportunities to scrape it out. Again, 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position, a number of hard hit balls that don't land. I shared my thoughts. I won't replicate everything I already said. Your thoughts on the decision to bat Austin Barnes in that moment. Yes, we know it was a left-handed pitcher in Jake McGee. You had Cody Bellinger, Gavin Lux, and Matt Beatty all available off the bench. And they stick with Barnes with runners at first and second and 1 out in the 7th inning. What were your thoughts?
To me, that was just inexcusable. Like I was legit like confused trying to figure out what was going on, because you say McGee was in there, but he wasn't in the game at the time. He was in the bullpen ready to go. So yes, you have to be prepared for that. But when Barnes went up to the plate, there was still a righty on the mound. So
and the argument would be that there's reverse splits with Rogers, that he's actually better against lefties than he is against righties. So whether it was McGee or Rogers, theoretically, you would rather have a righty. Would be the argument for Rogers, but to your point is well taken. Right.
Like I hear that, and I hear that even with like McGee. Like we know McGee's pretty good against lefties, but like at the end of the day, numbers are when when you're going with Austin Barnes. Like if you have another righty on the bench, like literally any other righty on the roster, I'm all in, you know, like
Yeah.
let's go with that guy. Let's get the better matchup. But when the decision is Austin Barnes as the righty, like I don't care about the matchup advantage there when you're sending a poor hitter up to the plate. You know, like I don't think the other options were that great either, but give me Matt Beatty or Gavin Lux or even Cody Bellinger in that spot over Austin Barnes. Like to me, that was the only like mistake of the night, I'd say. I mean, Dave Roberts didn't have a whole lot of decisions to make. Like when Max Scherzer goes 7 and then you have Trinan and Kelly for the 8th and 9th, your hands are, you know, you're doing good things there, and they got the job done. You know, I like the decision to pinch run for Pujols there. Like Wood was coming out of the game. You definitely want to get some speed in there. It's the tying run. I know it's only like the 5th inning or whatever, but you know, it's going to take a few hits to get Albert around. Whereas with McKinney, you know, you could at least got a little bit of speed there. So really the Barnes decision was the only inexcusable one. And if you're going to do that, like, why not bunt him? Like, I don't know.
Twitter might have exploded on that one.
I like first and second, 1 out. I was legitimately worried about a double play. I was like, like when he struck out, I wasn't even that mad because I was like, at least Mookie has a chance now. Because like the whole time when Barnes was going up there, I just saw it in my head like he's gonna hit a ground ball to the shortstop and this inning's gonna be over and this place is just gonna be silent. So I was glad that didn't happen at least. But like that was the least competitive at bat I've seen in a long time. Like 3 pitches, take a seat. And that was what we were expecting. Like it's not like, oh, like he got the better of him this time. Like, no, that's what I'd say everyone expected right there. So to me, that decision didn't make any sense. I don't think that's why they lost the game. Like they still had plenty of other chances, but in a 1-0 game, like you can't waste opportunities like that. And to me, that was just giving them a free out essentially.
Yeah, and A Live asks, when was the last time Barnes even took an at bat? It was 8 days ago. That was his last at bat. That was a pinch hitting opportunity against the Brewers. He did not get a hit in that at bat, in case you were wondering. One thing I will say that was interesting is we didn't really talk about, and you know, the decision with Souza pinch hitting for McKinney earlier on, but essentially it was the exact same decision. He played the platoon splits over the better player. Now it worked out with Souza, and I'll be honest, like I actually don't hate when Souza comes up to the plate. I have an irrational confidence with that guy. Like his OPS is like 560 or something in the majors. Like he's been really, really bad. But it just feels like at least a competitive major league at bat. Obviously, he singles, but it's the same thing. They used a righty because Rogers is better against lefties rather than a bunch of lefties who are better hitters than Souza. So one works out, the other one doesn't. Obviously, the Barnes one is the one that comes back to kill you. We've got Devin wants to say, hey, let's talk about the wind. I mean, there's not really much to talk about. It has to be said, both teams had to deal with it. Like, this wasn't unique to the Dodgers. It wasn't like the wind picked up only for Gavin Lux's flyout at the end of the game. It was something that Longoria's just got all the way through. And there were a couple balls hit to dead center that Chris Taylor made great plays on that probably would have gotten out or at least been off the wall or something if the wind wasn't there. So there were a couple opportunities for the Dodgers, but I don't think the wind was like the deciding factor because both teams had to deal with it. Do you agree?
I mean, the win was what the win was. Like you said, both teams had to deal with it. You know, it was a lot. I will say that. Like, I haven't seen a windy day like that down here in years. And
Kershaw said he's never seen it. He said, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it sucks that, like, today of all days was the one day that it decided to be like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you had to deal with it. And the Giants, they didn't do much better at the plate, but they just had the one swing that got the run they needed. And let me be clear, that ball Evan Longoria hit was destroyed. Like that ball, it looked like it barely went over the fence, but if that wind isn't there, that ball's like halfway up or 3/4 of the way up the pavilion. Like he got that one. And he had to get it out. Like I feel like if he doesn't get it the way he did, that ball dies at the warning track just like all the other ones. So like you said, the wind, you know, I don't think it decided the game. It's hard to say because without the wind, it's a completely different ball game, obviously. So we can't go back and say, oh, like if the wind wasn't there, that Gavin Lux ball gets out and we win. Like no, the whole game is different. Like literally every single play is different. So it sucks. I hope it's not back tomorrow because I'd like a nice normal game with some offense, preferably. But yeah, that was not fun.
Yeah,
I would have said, you know, I could bear this if the Dodgers win And I mean, I did bear it, but it would have been a lot more enjoyable if the Dodgers won. But I was just sitting there bundled up the whole time, waiting for the run that just never came.
Yeah, yeah. Dave Roberts, I guess this is a quote on the wind. Quote, any other night, the CT ball, the Gavin Lux ball would have been home runs. These two balls right there, it would have been a different outcome. I mean, yes, I agree with the first half. I don't necessarily agree with the second half because I just think I just don't think that it's as cut and dry as our two balls were the only two that were impacted. Again, the ball that Chris Taylor catches right on the warning track going up against the wall, I think falls in the same category. And if all those things go out or don't go out, we're talking about a tie game and not. I was trying to find if anything has been mentioned as far as as pitching for tomorrow. Here we go. Anthony DeSclafani is going to pitch for the Giants. That news just came out. Dave Roberts has not named a game.
Well, that's good news. That's good news, right?
Yeah.
Right there.
Dave Roberts has not named a Game 4 starter yet. So there you go. You say good news. I'll look up some of the stats on DeSclafani. They're not pretty. But why do you say DeSclafani?
Yeah, the Dodgers hit him well this year. I know that.
So I mean, talk to me about why that excites you versus a Webb on short rest or something like that.
Yeah, that's why it excites me, because the other option was Logan Webb. And I know at this point you're going to have to beat Logan Webb to win the series because the Dodgers, it's going to go 5 games if the Dodgers win. But with that being said, so it's really DeSclafani over Gausman. And I just think the Dodgers have seen the ball well off DeSclafani this year. The numbers will show it. And I think in the second half of the season, I'd say his just overall numbers were probably a lot worse than the first half of the season. Like, he was a borderline all-star in the first half, and here he is, like, barely a Game 4 starter. So I just like that matchup for the Dodgers for sure. And like you said, we'll see who's pitching for the Dodgers. I think it's going to be Walker Buehler. I don't see how you could go down on your season with Tony Gonsolin on the mound. And I like Tony Gonsolin. You like Tony Gonsolin. And we all love Tony Gonsolin. But I don't know if you're trusting him with the season on the line, which is where we're at right now.
So the DeSclafani numbers, May 23rd, 2 2/3, 9 hits, 3 walks, 10 earned runs allowed. He comes back 5 days later, 4 2/3, 5 hits, 4 walks, 2 earned runs allowed. He did pitch against the Dodgers again in June, 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts in that one. So a dramatically better performance there. This guy faced the Dodgers so often. He faced him again in July 22nd, 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, 3 earned. He faced him 6 days later, 2 2/3, 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs in that one. I believe that was his last start against the Dodgers. Nope, of course not. September 3rd, 6 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, no earned run. So his last start against the Dodgers was the one good one. So if you want to be pessimistic, you could say, hey, maybe he figured something out. But I mean, how often do you see a guy 6 times? And this will be number 7, I believe.
And that favors the hitters every time. Like, the more you see a guy, the more it favors you. And I mean, when you've already had success off of him, like, I feel like that just gives you at least some confidence going into tomorrow's game. Like, the Dodgers have gotten shut out in 2 of the last 3 games. They weren't much better in the wild card game. So that's 3 of the last 4 games that the offense hasn't really done much. So at least you could go to bed like with one good thought in your head, like, all right, we get to face DeSclafani tomorrow, who we've fared well against.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back though. I mean, because your point, you need to beat Logan Webb once, and he's the guy that scares you the most. Right. So you would rather have him on full rest in Game 5 rather than face him on short rest in Game 4.
I mean, to me, it's not really as much about the rest as much as, who would start the other game. Like, it's either Gausman or DeSclafani. Like, you're going to see Webb either way. And yes, I'd prefer him in Game 5 or in Game 4 on short rest. But to me, I think the trade-off of getting DeSclafani instead of Gausman is better than the 2 extra days of rest for Webb. And I think with the Giants bullpen, even if Webb would go on short rest, like, he would only need to get through, like Wood did today, 4 thirds. That was enough. Their bullpen took care of that. So to me, I just think DeSclafani is a guy who I wanted to see in the series. He's a guy, I think, if the Dodgers are going to put up like a crooked number, or like have a good offensive game against anyone, it's him. So that's why I'd rather, have him as opposed to, getting Webb on short rest and not seeing Gausman for a second time, who the Dodgers did hit Gausman, but I just think he's a lot better pitcher than DeSclafani. And to me, that's just you got to come out tomorrow with a strong offensive performance. Like I don't want to see a 2-1 game tomorrow. Like even if the Dodgers win, I want to come out and kind of similar to game two. Like let's come out and make a statement and take that momentum back because tonight was not fun. You know, it was it was
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah, I mean, and on that note, not to harp on the offense, but looking at a box score for a game like tonight, I mean, how much confidence do you have that these guys are going to be able to turn it around on short rest? Obviously, Mookie Betts, 0 for, Trey Turner, 0 for, Corey Seager, 0 for, Justin Turner does get a hit, but, has been really, really rough the entirety of this series. So how confident are you that these guys will be able to turn it around? I mean, I was just looking up the box score. 0 for 4 from Betts, 0 for 4 from Turner, 0 for 3 from Seager with a walk. Turner 1 for 4, Chris Taylor 0 for 3 with a walk, AJ Pollock 0 for 4. Pujols and Souza have 3 hits out of the 7 hole, and then Will Smith gets you 1 hit out of the 8 hole, and that's it. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm more confident now that it's this Sclafani, that's for sure. But I mean, to me, these guys got to get going eventually. Like they're too good of players to struggle the way they have. Like specifically, Trey Turner has done nothing this series. Justin Turner finally got a hit, but that was his first hit of the series, and it was like a ground ball the other way single. Like it's not like he barreled one up really. He's got to get going. Mookie, I mean, Mookie hit a couple balls hard tonight. 0 for 4 has nothing to show for it, but I think he was taking some good at bats. But to me, the Dodgers were missing. I mean, I couldn't see really, but going off the tweets and kind of from my angle, like it seemed like they were missing a lot of hittable pitches tonight. So I'm not super confident for that reason. Like if you're not hitting the 81-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle from the sidewinder, who are you going to hit? But you got to rely on the names and know they don't have to come out of it. But you'd think they would eventually, but if they don't tomorrow, it's over. So it's do or die. These guys have been in this position before. They were just down 3-1 to the Braves last year. No panic from any of them. They just kept clawing away and fighting, and I expect the same tomorrow.
I see some people asking, Abe's asking about, is age getting to Justin Turner? He can't really catch up to the fastball anymore. I mean, the thing is this is the same guy who hit the home run that tied the game in the wild card. This is the same guy who was actually really, really good for the entirety of the season. Last year, I know there was a big storyline about his velocity. He seemed to correct that during the regular season. Obviously, hasn't been great tonight, does get the single, which is the irony, right? Mookie hits a couple balls hard, has nothing to show for it. Justin Turner, kind of a slap single through the right-hand side, just right place, right time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he got a hit, and yes, he was 0 for 11 into the series coming into that one. But I mean, I don't know. Like I refuse to believe that like in the last month he became too old to hit major league pitching. And yes, when you see a guy that's throwing 101, maybe that's not the perfect matchup for Justin Turner, but the rest of these guys, like Rogers, is throwing like 83. So like, I don't know.
Yeah. Alex Wood's throwing 92. Like the only guy on the Giants who's really coming with velocity is their closer, Dotal or whatever his name is, and that guy's filthy. I mean, he's a rookie, so we're going to be seeing a lot of him in the coming years, which is unfortunate. But that's really the only velocity he's seen. Like and like even going back to Logan Webb, Gossman, like none of those guys are throwing 100 or anything. So I don't know if velocity is necessarily the issue. Like I said, he's pretty good at offensive. I don't want to say age is catching up to him, but let's hope he turns it around tomorrow. Let me just say that because he's one of the clutchest playoff guys of all time. He leads the Dodgers in every offensive category in October. So to show up eventually, we just hope it the season doesn't end before it happens.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Desclafani on the mound, right-handed pitcher for the Giants. What do you expect to see from a lineup perspective? I mean, obviously, again, a lot of these positions are spoken for. We're mostly talking about center field and first base. Is it Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger, and you just pencil it in and go from there, or does Matt Beatty get a chance?
No, to me, I'm going with Taylor and Cody. Same lineup as game 2. Chris Taylor's actually been taking some good swings. Like he hits that ball to right center that ball's smoked, and I think that expected batting average was like 900 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So Chris Taylor's definitely in there. His defense was phenomenal tonight, which can be expected. So you feel comfortable with him in center field. And Cody or Beatty. That's close, but I'd just rather go with Cody. Like, to me, when your season's on the line, who's the better uh,
Yeah.
baseball player, I guess is the right word to use. And I know this season it was Matt Beatty, but at the end of the day, I still think Cody, he's shown flashes. I'm not expecting too much. I would bat him eighth. I'm not doing the game 2 thing where, Pollock is eighth and he's seventh. I'd bat Cody eighth. And you just hope he takes a couple good at bats. He's capable of changing a game with one swing. I know it hasn't happened in a while, but he's capable of getting into one at any time. So I'd go Cody. But I want to see Matt Beatty off the bench. Like, he's a guy who was probably the Dodgers' best pinch hitter this season, and we didn't see him tonight when literally everyone else gets into the game. Like, even Austin Barnes gets into the game, and somehow Matt Beatty doesn't. So I'd like to see him off the bench. I think he's a better pinch hitting option than Cody, and I think Cody's a better defender. So I'd go Chris Taylor and Cody. Just put
Let
Cody
me throw
in
this one
that
at you.
hole for me.
Would you consider or even think about Gavin Lux starting over AJ Pollock in left field?
I consider I'd have to wait and see what the wind looks like. I'm not throwing Gavin Lux out in left field if the wind is anywhere near what it was tonight, just because he has zero experience in the outfield. But if it's a normal day, I definitely would consider it. Gavin put a good charge into that one. He was great in the month of September. AJ Pollock was also great, but we see outside of game 2, this postseason has not exactly taken inspiring at bats. So, and with a righty on the mound, the matchup favors Lux. So I definitely would think about it, but I got to see.
Yeah, and again,
to
be fair, Pollock in the 4th had runners at 1st and 2nd, and yet again had a hard hit ball that just happened to be right at Brandon Crawford. He stops, makes the throw to second base. So I've been a Pollock defender, but I struggle to think that after a performance as bad offensively as this one, that you don't at least try something to mix it up. And I feel like Lux is the type of guy that could just put a charge into the lineup, just to get a little energy in there, to put some speed on the field, to put some athleticism, to mix things up a little bit. Again, it's nothing against Pollock, but it's just give him a different look. You want to do the righty-lefty thing. You love the splits. Here's your time. Obviously Pollock hits everybody well, but he struggled in the postseason, and he struggled historically in the postseason. As much as I want to defend him, even the double he had wasn't a crushed ball. It was a first pitch breaking ball that he just kind of bloops into left field. That's a double just because of where the left fielder was playing and where he hit it. So you give him credit for it, but it's not like he just gets into one and puts it into the right center field gap just as he was hoping to. So I don't know. That'll be interesting, because if Dave Roberts feels the need to do something, I also think that would seem to make the most sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that first DeSclafani start you mentioned when he gave up 10 earned runs, I'm almost positive Gavin Lux hit a grand slam off him in that game. So, he's had success off of him in the past. I'd have to look up, the exact numbers, but that's a good idea, something I didn't really think of until you mentioned it. So that's definitely something I consider. I just got to see what the
Joe
win
Uribe,
looks like first.
Obviously one of the big storylines that we've all seen on social media is complaints from Dodger fans that Jock Peterson is no longer here. Kike Hernandez is not here. I don't think people are complaining about Verdugo, because at least they're smart enough to realize that Mookie Betts came over in that move. So I want to ask you a specific question before we get back to that. Joseph says the Dodgers lost their passionate players, and all the guys that they have are too passive, essentially. Referring to Jock Peterson as a guy that could energize the lineup, Kike Hernandez, who plays with energy. Do you think energy and passivity is an issue for this group, or do you think it's just that's just playing the results and saying because they only scored 0 runs tonight, now they're passive?
I mean, I definitely think, like, on a night like tonight going into tomorrow, like, probably like in the group text, like, I bet Jock and Kike would be two of the guys, like, energizing, pumping guys up. So you do miss them there. But I think it's important to remember that, like, those guys were free agents, and free agency is a two-way street. And those are two guys who were platoon, part-time players, utility guys with the Dodgers. And at this point in their careers, they wanted to go be everyday players, and you can't really fault them for that. It's I will say I enjoy watching them this postseason. Like, both of those two guys are absolutely matching. It's unfortunate that they're doing it with teams that aren't the Dodgers, but I don't think, like, going back to the offseason, I don't have a problem with the way the Dodgers handled things. Like, sure, you probably could have overpaid Jock and got him to buy into a platoon for one more year, but then you're probably losing someone else. And I know a lot of that money ended up going to Trevor Bauer, which
Yeah.
you get nothing out of at this point. But let's say all the Bauer stuff doesn't happen, and Bauer, he had a great first half with the Dodgers. Like I'm sure we'd take him in this series over Jock Peterson. Like just
Yeah.
talking about the baseball player, not the person, obviously. But like, so I don't have a problem with the way the Dodgers handled things. Um,
Yeah.
when you see them hit the way they are in October, you wish we had them. But still, like when you look at the Dodgers lineup, like maybe you have a Jock, Pollock platoon in left. But like,
Yeah.
where's Kike gonna play? Like, he's not playing over
Yeah.
Trey Turner. Like, he's probably not
Yep.
playing over Chris Taylor. Like, I still think Chris Taylor had a better overall season than Kike. So it's unfortunate watching them do what they do. But I don't think the Dodgers could have really done
Yeah. So
anything
a couple
differently.
notes on Twitter here. The first is when interviewed, Brandon Crawford and Evan Longoria both said that they thought Gavin Lux's ball was out in the ninth, that their hearts dropped into their stomachs, which that doesn't make me feel any better. But here's the big one. Pedro Mora just tweeted, Dave Roberts said the Dodgers have not decided who's starting tomorrow's Game 4. Albert Pujols indicated Walker Buehler is starting on short rest. That was a tweet from Pedro Mora. So
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
And there's yeah, exactly. With your season on the line, Buehler's the guy that you would want in that situation.
Yeah. And the thing is, with the way, like, no one outside of Trinan and Kenley, no other relievers were used tonight. Trinan and Kenley themselves didn't throw a ton of pitches. They hadn't pitched in the series before, so they're still rested. So you have a full bullpen ready to go. So even though Walker's on short rest, like if you could get 4 innings out of him, maybe 5, like you absolutely take that.
Totally agree with you. Just back to the Jock and Kike thing, I couldn't agree more. Like I had joked with Matt in the pregame show. I had so many tweets and drafts that ended up just getting deleted because I couldn't fire them off. But it's just been frustrating to see, like, oh man, I wish we had this. Yeah, like, of course, I wish we had Bryce Harper right now. Like, I wish we had Shohei Ohtani right now. Like, free agency is a situation where the Dodgers couldn't offer them what everybody else could offer them. Yes, they could offer them a dollar amount, but they couldn't offer them everyday playing time, which is what they really wanted, which is what they needed to get paid like. And honestly, for those guys, it might not have even been strictly a financial decision. Kike wanted to go somewhere where he was going to start. Jock wanted to go somewhere where he was going to start. And so to say like, oh, if only we had, it's not like the Dodgers chose not to re-sign those guys. It's not like the guys, like nobody is complaining that they chose to keep AJ Pollock over Jock Peterson when you look at the performances that those two guys had in the regular season. Now, obviously, Pollock was already under contract.
Sure.
Nobody a year ago was complaining that they chose Chris Taylor over Kike Hernandez. Again, although Chris Taylor was under contract for 1 more year. So you can't play the results and come back and be like, oh my gosh, I wish we had. Yeah, there's lots of free agents I wish we had. If they had traded these guys away and basically gotten nothing in return, that would be a different story. But in free agency, like, don't even go down the road of, oh, what if, because it was never realistically going to happen. Again, what if we had signed Garrett Cole? What if we had signed Bryce Harper? Why bother having those conversations? Because it didn't happen. So anyways, that's just my thoughts on that. But I think it's an interesting way to think about it. Crash Burn points out 0-9-0, the Dodgers scoring line in this series. They scored 0 runs in game 1, 0 runs in game 3, and 9 runs in the middle. That's brutal. That's brutal for the Dodgers. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Desclafani versus Buehler on short rest. I imagine the Dodgers will be heavy favorites. Yet again, I believe they've been favorites in every single game thus far in this series. You think they pull it out tomorrow?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm never going to give up hope. Like you said, like on paper, the Dodgers still have a better team. They should have won this game. Like 1 or 2 bounces go their way differently, they win this game. So yeah, I mean, I just spoke a lot about Anthony Desclafani. I obviously think that if there's any guy that this offense is going to get to, it's him. So you feel good there. If it is Walker Buehler, you also feel good about that. Like even though he'll be on short rest, like this dude's a gamer. Like we've seen him in the big moments so many times, and he's come through time and time again. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna pick the Dodgers. I'm gonna be nervous the whole time. Like elimination games are not fun at all, but this team they've been there before. Like this isn't anything new to them. So they just got to come out and play their game, and they should be able to win at home when it's Anthony Desclafani pitching. Like game 5 in SF with Logan Webb, like that's a different story. Like we'll see if we get there, how confident we're feeling. But you got to feel confident when you're at home against a mediocre type.
Yeah, pitcher. And I mean, Desclafani, is he better or worse than Alex Wood? He's probably in the same general tier, which is a pitcher that you feel good about beating. I mean, if you're the Dodgers, you sort of have the expectation of, hey, if like, we're not going to allow more than like 3 runs in this game. And so the question is, can the offense actually put something together? Can the offense actually get the bats going and things headed in the right direction? I think that's the only thing that matters to me is can they? And again, as you said, there's probably nobody in all of baseball that the Dodger offense would rather see on the mound tomorrow than DeSclafani. And that's not a knock on him. It's just the way that they've hit him this season has been unlike the way they've hit anybody else.
Right.
And so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like I said, I think there's room for creativity in the lineup with a guy like Gavin Lux maybe finding his way in, maybe Matt Beatty finding his way in, because that was the other thing. Cody Bellinger didn't take an at bat in this game. You know, they specifically chose to save him, not to put him in as a pinch runner, to let Billy McKinney pinch run so that he would never hit. And yet then they saved Bellinger and didn't use him in that Austin Barnes spot and then threw him into the game anyways to play defense. He would have been up, I think, like 5th in the 9th inning.
No, that's a good point, because if they just go to Bellinger as a pinch runner there and he stays in the game, then he gets the Souza at bat, because Souza was pinch hitting for McKinney, which who knows how that goes. Like, Souza starts it by getting on base, obviously. Like, who knows how it goes if it's Bellinger, if the Barnes situation might not even come up where it's 1st and 2nd with 1 out. But it, like, let's just say it does. In that situation, then you have Souza, who's a much better option as a righty, instead of burning him 2 batters later because you got a pinch hit for Billy McKinney, who I will say I'm glad they didn't trust Billy McKinney to take an AB there.
He's
like,
the one guy below Austin
that
Barnes
at all,
on my ranking list.
Right. Yeah. But if you're gonna pinch run him and let him play an inning or 2 of defense and then just pinch hit for him, and then put Cody in after that, like, why not just go to Cody there?
I think it's a fair question. There's some crazy videos, by the way, right now being posted on Twitter from beat reporters that are still at Dodger Stadium, basically showing just crap flying around all over the stadium because the wind is still going crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was all night.
Ridiculous stuff there, but a big one for the Dodgers tomorrow, obviously. They're all in, and this is a series that we've talked about. It means more because it's the Giants. It's going to hurt more if they lose. It's going to feel better if they win. I'm with you. I just refuse to believe that Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Corey Seager, Will Smith, that those guys, Justin Turner, AJ Pollock, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor, whoever, Matt Beatty, whoever, Gavin Lux, whoever gets thrown in there, I just refuse to believe that group is going to go get shut out twice in 3 games and not rebound and get their crap together. Somebody's in the dugout. Somebody's in the clubhouse right now getting fired up. I know this isn't a team that doesn't panic, but I have to imagine that somebody is getting up in the clubhouse right now and saying, hey, this crap isn't good enough.
Definitely.
Like, the urgency needs to be stepped up. The motivation, the energy, it needs to be brought. We need to play with a confidence level of knowing, hey, we came back from 3 games to 1 down in the NLCS last year. We went out and we lost that terrible Brett Phillips game in the World Series, and we bounced back and we won. That none of this is too tough for this group. We are better than them. We are capable of going out and scoring runs. We got Buehler on the mound tomorrow. We've got Urias on the mound on Thursday. We can do this, but we need to show up. We need to believe in it. I got to imagine that Justin Turner, Mookie Betts, somebody, David Price, somebody is getting up in the clubhouse right now and giving that talk. And I think, Pujol's another guy. Like, they just have guys that believe it. There just needs to be an urgency. It can't be passive. I'm not saying that that's the reason they're losing, but I'm just saying it can't hurt to go in there and say, hey, let's get a little bit more fired up for tomorrow. We've hit this guy DeSclafani well. Let's get things going early. So I think the Dodgers are going to win. Again, I don't think the Dodgers pitching. I think they allow 3 runs. And the question to me is, can the offense come back and score 5 runs tomorrow? That's the issue that remains to be seen. So that'll do it for us. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess the good news is that, like, with this offense, it's kind of all or nothing. So it's either going to be 0 or 9 runs.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for tonight. That's Daniel Stark, and my name's Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be back with some sort of live content tomorrow night after the game. Hopefully, it's a Dodgers win. We'll see. Again, that's Daniel. I'm Jeff. Check out Dodger Blue 1958 for all the post-game coverage, and we'll talk to you soon.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball